Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Gunn-Sandell, and I am a research instructor with the Center for Innovative Design and Analysis. And this video is going to walk you through how to get set up with SAS Studio or another SAS environment called the SAS Windowing Environment in preparation for CU Data Weeks 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope that it is helpful to get you set up. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to seeing you at our sessions in the coming weeks. So I'm going to talk about how to get set up with SAS. If you follow these steps in advance of our seminars, then you should be prepared to follow along with the instructors in our various webinars throughout the schedules. So our agenda for today is going to be what is SAS, how to access the variety of SAS products available, and how to set your working directory in both SAS Studio and the SAS Windowing environment, depending on which you end up choosing to use. So just a little background, what is SAS? SAS stands for the Statistical Analysis System, and it is a suite of analytics software that's commonly used in public health applications and statistics applications. It allows users to work with data, specifically to access data saved in various file formats, and you can manage and manipulate that data in preparation for analysis and creating reports. Base SAS is the foundation for all of SAS software, and it provides a flexible programming language, a choice of programming interfaces, and a huge selection of programming procedures, which we can call procs, and these can accomplish a variety of different goals. So there are three different types of SAS products that you can access. The first is called SAS On Demand for Academics, or abbreviated to SAS Studio. And this is a free browser-based programming environment. So it's hosted on a SAS server, and you can use up to 5 gigabytes of memory. I have 2 links here for either creating your SAS account to get started, or if you already have a SAS account, then you can get started with SAS Studio. The second version is the licensed version, which is the windowing environment, and this is a paid user license. So here at CU Anschutz, employees can access a paid license through their department. So that is what I use. And you get this on an annual basis. And here is a link at the OIT office's tools, and you can learn how to get a license through your employer or your department if it's available to you. And finally, there's SAS Enterprise Guide. This is a point-and-click user interface, which I have never used myself personally, but I know is used in various industries. And for those of you who have not yet registered for CU Data Week 2025, here is the QR code to get registered. You can select from 1 through all of the 8 different seminars we have this year, as well as we are offering office hours each Friday at noon for 1 hour, and you can come to us with questions, and we will do our best to answer any coding questions you might have or other questions that have arisen throughout the week's content. So with that, we hope to see you at CU Data Week 2025 this year. Here are some resources as you're getting prepared. SAS documentation is a great place to go if you have questions about various coding syntax items or other offerings through the SAS software. SAS Communities is an online forum where you can ask and peruse questions other users have asked. And it's similar to Stack Exchange, but specific to SAS, where you can ask questions and you can crowdsource information on solving your problems. And then there are a lot of SAS video tutorials already prepared, and that you can find at video.sas.com. And there's a lot of great resources there. So at this point, I am going to move on over to SAS Studio. So following that first link, you are going to see this page on SAS's website, and you're going to need to set up your SAS account. So if you don't have one, you can click Access Now, and it is going to prompt you to create a user account. And then from there, we're going to be able to access SAS Studio. I already have an account, so I'm not going to press Access Now. But when you do, it's going to take you to this page that's SAS On Demand for Academics. And this, again, is that free browser-based version for you. So I'm going to click Launch, and that will take us to SAS Studio. And here is just the empty user interface that you are going to come across when you log into SAS Studio every time. So I want to orient you a little bit about what you're seeing. This main section here that is empty and is called Program 1, we're on the Code tab. So this is going to be our script file if we were creating a script from scratch. And so you can start to type in here and do whatever you might need, for example. So this is your script file. The next tab under Program 1 is called Log. And so once we start writing and submitting code in this interface, every time we are going to refer back to the log to see if we have been given any errors, warnings, or notes regarding the code that we have submitted. And finally, we have this Results tab. And once we start creating tables, we are generating statistics or creating reports, we're going to start seeing output here in this Results tab. Over on the left, we have this navigation bar, and initially we are under the Server, Files, and Folders section. If we then go a little bit lower, we have some other options here, and most importantly, we want to look at libraries. So libraries are how we are going to interact with the data that we have ourselves for analysis or data manipulation, as well as creating new data sets and creating new files. And so that is going to be considered the libraries, and it is our back-end connection to anything that we have on our cloud or our computer. So I am going to walk you through how to upload and create some sort of project structure. Typically, when I am starting a new project, I'm going to be creating a new script file to start the project. But today I want to show you how you can upload this pre-created SAS script. So first I'm going to come to Files, and I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to create a new, we're going to come up here to this plus sign, and I'm going to create a new folder. So I'm going to call this CU Data Week 2025. And then I'm going to click Save. And we're going to see now that that folder has been created in our main files. Now in that folder, I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new, we're going to go New and then Folder. And in this folder, CU Data Week 2025, I'm going to create a code file, a folder. I'm also going to create a new folder called Data Raw. And I'm also going to create a new folder that is called Data Clean. And I'll talk a little bit more about these briefly. So I have stored on my local computer my SAS script file that I would like to upload into this cloud environment. So on this code folder, I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Upload Files. And so now it's going to prompt me to choose files that I have stored locally on my computer. And I'm going to select that SAS script, choose Open, and then we can see that my selected file is listed here, and then I can choose Upload. And it's now going to upload my code file into SAS Studio. Next, we're going to be working with data throughout our SAS-focused seminars this week. And so I would like to show you how to upload upload data files into SAS Studio. So just like we did with the code, I'm going to select Upload Files into my Data Raw folder. And I'm going to choose some files. I'm going to choose two. One is, they're both named the same, but they're different file formats. I'll choose Open, so I can see that I have a CSV file type and an Excel file type. So I'm going to upload both of those. All right, so now we are ready to get started. I'm going to go back to my code folder and I'm going to select my code script file. I'll double click on that. And now it's going to open for me. I'm going to close program run. That's just the empty file and I don't need that today. So I'm going to click Don't Save. So this is what a SAS script might look like if you have been given one from a colleague, or what you can start to create as an ideal form of SAS scripting. So at the very top, I have a section from lines 1 through 14, and this is called my script header. It gives some meta information about what is contained in this file. So I have a title, or this is really a title of the title. So this is for CU Data Week 2025, but then I have a program title. So we're getting set up with SAS and SAS Studio. I am the author, and it's best practice to have a date created and date revised so that you can keep track of the progress of this script. And then the program purpose. And I also have here a link to our website, and you can see what other sessions we have going on this year. And when a line of code starts with an asterisk, it will turn the text green, and that means that it is a comment. This is not executable code, but more notes to yourself or to another human reader about what is going on. So I pulled over those same bullets from my presentation about what is SAS, the different types of software, and how to interact with SAS. So just to walk a little bit through this, I showed you this programming editor space, and that is the code section where we are going to be typing and submitting code. We have this Explorer bar over here, and this is where we have our folder structure, similar to how we might have it on our local hard drive. And then we have down here on the bottom left, some different navigation tools and specifically libraries. And then the log and the results tabs, which I talked about previously. So the typical workflow that you might use as a programmer would be writing your program in the editor window. So that's where I am right now, this code section. Then you're going to submit the program or submit individual lines of code, and you're going to press this running person symbol up here to do that. Then we're going to read the contents of the log, determine if there are any errors, and we're seeing what we're expecting to see. If we are generating statistics or submitting tests, then we're going to view the output in the results window. And then using all of that information, we can proceed and make changes as necessary and continue programming. So the most important part before we even begin to start writing code is setting up our working directory. And this is so SAS can communicate with any of the data we are actually wanting to use. So I'm going to show you how to set up folders in this cloud environment. After we walk through SAS Studio, I'm going to switch over to the Windowing environment, and I'll show you how to do the exact same thing if you have the paid licensing version. So we've already created that parent folder, and it is this one that we've titled CU Data Week 2025. And then I created some subfolders, code, data clean, and data raw. We added for step 3A, uploading that raw data. We did an Excel file, and we also uploaded a CSV type file. But now we need to show SAS how we can actually interact with those folders. And that is going to be through SAS libraries. This is an unseen connection in the back end where we're saying, we want to interact with any of the files in this data raw folder, but we cannot map directly to that folder. We have to map to a SAS library, and then we're going to start saving data in SAS data files, and that is how SAS is going to be able to use and interact with the data. And SAS data sets are stored in these SAS libraries. It is a SAS file type. And these SAS libraries are permanent, except for one, which is called the work library. So I'd like to show you that. If we click on this library's navigation title, and we click this triangle to drop down all the libraries, these are the automated libraries that come with SAS. There are a bunch in here that I rarely use, but I do use two quite frequently that I'd like to point out. First is the SAS data, or excuse me, SAS help. And if we look in this SAS help library, there are dozens of preloaded data sets in here where you can look at this. Let's see, let's look at cars. So if we double click on cars, it's going to open up and preview this SAS data set for us. And there's a lot of information in here that you can use to test your code on pre-existing data and just start to get a sense of how SAS code works as a new programmer. So this is a great way to just practice programming. The next library here is called the work library, and this is a temporary library. So typically, if I am writing code and I'm trying to test different things, I'm creating new variables and I want to do some summary statistics on those variables and check that how I'm creating my variables is working and correct, you can save your data to this work library. But then at the end of the day, when you close out of your SAS Studio account, it's going to delete anything that was written to this work library. That way you're not building up a lot of data in your limited amount of memory. Once you do have code and you know that you want to save that data permanently, I'm going to show you how to create these SAS libraries that are permanent for each of your projects. And that's where you would then write that data. So the work library is a great place to just throughout the day, you're practicing or you're creating these temporary data sets that you don't need long-term for reproducibility, and I would save them here. So SAS libraries are referred to within your code using an 8-character nickname, or what we call a library reference name, or a libref. So these are user-defined libraries where we are wanting to interact with our SAS data sets as well as access non-SAS data sets initially. So those Excel type files, CSV, or other data file types. We also can then use these SAS user-defined libraries to write out clean data or write out final reports that then you would like to download and share with your collaborators. And so in order to do that, we're going to follow this general structure where we use this global option called lib name, which is a global statement, meaning once you submit it, it is executed for your entire program until you end your session as the user. And then each of your SAS data sets is going to have this 2-level name, where you have your libref, which is that nickname, and then your official data set name. So if we go up here to the SAS help folder, our 2-level name for any of the data sets that are saved in this library would be SAS help dot and then the name of the data set. So for example, this data called air, the 2-level name would be SAS help dot air. Or there's another data set in here called class right here. And so that 2-level name is SAS help dot class. If we were writing to our work library, our temporary data set, or yes, our temporary folder called work dot trial. If we were wanting to use our permanent libraries, which I'll show you how to define momentarily, that would be something like data raw dot trial. So I'd like to show you how to create these user-defined libraries for accessing and writing data in SAS Studio. So first we need to be creating our global path. So we want to be writing to a parent folder. So we have to go back up to our folder structure, and I'm going to right click my parent folder, which is CU Data Week 2025. And I'm going to go all the way down to properties. So I will select properties, and we're going to see some various metadata pieces of information, but what I'm most concerned with right now is location. So this is how SAS knows where the folder is located. And I'm going to highlight this whole folder path, copy it, and then I'm going to close. So my path is /home, this user number that I did not define that's automated from SAS, and then my personally defined parent folder, CU Data Week 2025. And I'm nicknaming this path to be called path root. And this SAS statement here, the %let, is just simply creating a shortcut to this parent folder, which I will be referring from here on out to as path root. So you can do this for every single one of your folders as you are creating your new folders in SAS Studio. You create this parent folder, and path root could be called anything. You could say parent folder, you could say root, you could nickname it just as P, whatever you want it to be, you are defining that, and you have to refer to that name moving forward in the code. So I'm going to highlight that full line of code, and then I'm going to press this running person icon. And it is going to take me immediately to the log tab of my script file, and it's going to give me notes about what happened. So I can see that the %let path root statement was submitted, and I'm not seeing any errors or warnings. Those are different colors. So an error would be in red, and a warning is going to be in green, and notes typically are in blue. So I'm feeling good. So now I would like to tell SAS, well, now you know how to interact with this parent folder, but we also have to be able to interact with the data raw and data clean folders via SAS libraries. So now I'm going to create shortcuts through these lib name statements to each of those folders. So the way that we do that is we have lib name followed by our 8-character nickname of that folder. And just to keep it easy and straightforward, I usually call it something very similar to what the actual folder is called. So first I'm writing to this data raw folder, which nicely is less than 8 characters. So I'm going to call my library data raw as well. And then within quotation marks, we have an ampersand followed by our nickname of that parent folder we defined in line 133 of the code, and then closing quotation and a semicolon. All SAS script syntax statements should conclude with a semicolon. And that is different from other languages like R or Python. I also want to create a library that goes to the data clean folder, and following the exact same structure as the previous line of code, we have the lib name statement, then my nickname for the folder called data clean, and then in quotations, my path root, and then the actual folder name, close quotation and semicolon. So I'm going to highlight both those lines of, or both the lines of code. I'm going to click this running person. And now we have more in the log than we had seen last time. We can see that there's a note telling us that our library reference called data raw was successfully assigned. And then it shows us that physical file path. And that looks like what we were expecting and what we wanted. Similarly, for our library reference called data clean, we have it successfully assigned, and then it looks like it's going to the correct folder. So we can go back to the log, and now if we go down to our libraries, we are going to see 2 new libraries formed. we see our data clean and the data raw. So those are the two libraries that we just defined in our code. And now they have been created in our user environment, and we can read and write to those. So we have successfully assigned our two libraries. So the final step today, before you join our sessions throughout the week, is just showing you how reading in a non-SAS data file works and how we're writing it within our SAS libraries. So first, I'm going to read in a SAS CSV file. And this proc is a proc import. It shows us how, or it allows us some different options for reading in different file types into SAS and SAS Studio. But in the basic data management section, you will learn more about the specificities of this syntax. So just to show you how data is written in, I have my data file. Again, I'm using that path root, which is the nickname for our parent folder. It is in this folder called data raw, and then the file name is called birthweight_cu dataweek.csv. And what I'm going to do for this file is I want to write this file into my data raw SAS library called data raw. And this new version of the data will be as a SAS data set, which we can then manipulate to our heart's desire. And we're calling this new data set birth WT_C, which just to me is birth weight abbreviated and shortened. So I'm going to select this whole step. Going to select, well, first I just want to show you right now, if I click the triangle next to my library, nothing populates below it because this library is currently empty. But now, if I choose to read in this data from a CSV type into one of my SAS libraries, we are going to check the log. We have notes saying that this file was read in. There were 50,000 records in this data set, a bunch of other information I'm not going to discuss at this time. But we see this new tab pop up called Output Data. It gives us a preview of what that data set looks like. But importantly, if we go back to our libraries and we click on our data raw library, we now see that our birth weight data has been successfully read into our user environment, and it is now a SAS data set. So we can use this data, manipulate this data, write reports with this data, and it is now in a format that is usable by SAS Studio. So the next little set of code, I wanted to show you just an example of reading in an Excel file type. And instead of writing it to our data raw library, I'm going to write it to my work library. So again, this is a temporary library. We are not going to be saving this data once we close out of our session. This is just a place where you can be playing around with your data, doing what you need, and it's not something that is critical and needs to be saved. So I'm going to highlight this whole step, press the okay. So now when we go to our SAS library, and we go to data raw, we're not going to see it because we did not read that one in. But in our work library, that's where we just wrote this lot data to, and we can see it here, birthweight_x for our Excel file. So this is how we initially will start to interact with the data. You're going to follow similar processes for this two-level name when you're creating new data sets from your raw versions of the data, as well as writing any reports to your existing files. So now I'm going to switch over to our windowing environment. And just as we did before, there is a script section when you open up your windowing environment. Here, the log is a separate window, and you can orient this however you want. If you prefer to have it on the side, if you prefer to have it above. If you'd rather have the script take up the entire screen and click back and forth between the tabs down here, you can choose your preference. I usually like to be able to see a little bit of my log as I'm submitting code, just prevents me from having to click around too much. On this side, we have our Explorer window and we have our library icon. So similarly to how the SAS Studio environment has your libraries, you also have those here. The SAS Help library has all of those same pre-installed data sets you can work with. So we looked at the cars data set. I'll double click on that, and a similar data set to what was in SAS Studio. And if you click on the Explore window and then you have this up one level icon at the top, that will get you back to the previous screen. We also have the work library. This is empty right now because we just started a new session, and it is again our temporary library. And then we have the log window, and at the very top there again is this little running person icon, and that is how we're submitting our code. I'm going to scroll past the same code elements we talked through in the last section of this video. I'm going to come all the way down to setting our working directory in the windowing environment. So just like we had to do in SAS Studio, we have to create our parent folder location. But now instead of communicating with this cloud-based environment, we're actually communicating with the folders on our local hard drive, or perhaps in your university OneDrive. We're creating that back-end connection between the files that we have on our computer and working in this desktop version of SAS. So I am going to create my root folder, and here I'm going to use root. In the last section for SAS Studio, I said path root, but I would like to show you that you don't have to use the same word. It's however you prefer to use it as the user. So my parent folder is called CU Data Week _2025, and it is nested in many, many folders in my university OneDrive. So I will highlight that full row of code, select the running person, and submit. And automatically my log is up here. I'm not seeing any warnings. So my path to my parent folder has been defined. Again, we then have to assign our lib names. So using those libref nicknames to the folder that contains the data sets we want to interact with. And just like I did in SAS Studio, I like to mirror the folder names that are on my computer. And I'm just going to show you my file finder so you can see what I'm talking about. But in this file finder, I am in my parent folder, CU Data Week 2025. I have a folder called Data Clean, which right now is empty. And I have a folder called Data Raw. And I have my two data files here. One is an Excel file type, the other is a CSV. And this is where I'm going to be referencing when I define my libraries. So my lib name, going to that data raw folder, I'm calling data raw. And then for data clean, going to this data clean folder in my root. So I'll highlight both those rows of code, click this running icon. And again, up here in my log, we have notes saying that my lib reference was successfully assigned for both my data raw and my data clean. And so I'm going to look over here in my libraries section, and look here, we have the data clean and the data raw libraries. The next step is just testing out that we have created these libraries and they're functioning properly. So I'm going to read in both of those raw data sets into SAS. And so using that proc import again, first I'll read in the CSV version of the file, and I'm going to have this being written into that data raw library. So I'll highlight all of the code. And here Now our log, we have to scroll up a little bit more to see all of the information, but I'm not seeing any warnings or any errors in green or red. So that's indicating to me this worked correctly. We see that the data raw dot birth weight underscore C has 50,000 observations and 12 variables. And so I can check that by coming over to the data raw library. I'll double click. We see that data set is now in our data raw library. And I'm just going to double click on that icon and open it. And we can see here, we do have data read in successfully. I'm going to do the exact same thing now with our Excel file, but instead of being read into our permanent library, I'm going to read it into that temporary library called work. And it looks like we don't have any errors. A note saying that it was successfully created and had 50,000 observations, 12 variables. If I navigate back up to my main library viewer and I go to my work library and double click it, we now see that that new data set was read in, and I'll double click that. And we have our data set in there. So inside that data raw library, we now have our birth weight underscore C data set. And inside that work library, you have your birth weight underscore X data set. So if we close out of this SAS session and we open it back up, this birth weight in the work library will be gone. But once we assign our path route and libraries, the permanent libraries, if you open that data raw library, you will see the data that you've previously assigned to that folder, because we are interacting and communicating directly with our computer. And so that is how we will then create our clean data sets for analysis, and how you can write directly from SAS into existing folders on your computer or in your OneDrive for any reports or files you might be generating from SAS. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I would say getting set up with SAS Studio and writing your path route and libraries is by far the most complicated and confusing part of working with SAS. It took me a little bit of time when I first started working with SAS Studio and SAS Windowing Environment to truly understand what was going on. So I encourage you to come to the sessions with any questions. Please attend our office hours both weeks on Friday at noon. You can register to receive the Zoom information using that QR code referenced earlier, or going to the CEDA website. That's part of the School of Public Health website. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoy working with SAS as much as I do, and best of luck.